on this computer. I think I'm just going to do it that way. And then, okay, that's good. And now I can share the screen again. Sorry about that, guys.
No problem.
Okay. There we go. So, when I finish my drawing, I'll show you what I'm talking about, and then you guys can choose. The great thing is, you can even add this later after you think you're done. So if you decide, oh, I want to add that later, you can do that. I've done that many a time where I've just kind of lifted out some stuff and in the shape of a fence that I wanted to put in, and put in a fence, and it worked really well. So I can even show you that. Find that sketch. Oh, here it is. Wow, didn't realize that. Okay, so let's see, pencil. And I kind of want to move that over here. A little bit more. Let's bring that over here. So also something to keep in mind when doing something like this is not to let the drawing part intimidate you. Just pick out the simple shapes of things. And draw those shapes. That's if you, I'll real quickly, I'll switch over to my sketch. You can see, you know, this is just a kind of a parallelogram running along there. Same with this shape. This is, you know, just got a nice little pitch. One thing to keep in mind is this runs fairly parallel to, say, the top or bottom of your page. Same with all these. Let me get a pointer here. Same with all these lines. They're fairly parallel to the bottom of the sheet, you know, page. So those are things to keep in mind when sketching this out. So don't worry if it's not perfect, because, you know, mine's never perfect either. And
Michael, this is Jackie. And my last picture, I had trouble covering my pencil lines. So this time I'm using watercolor pencils to sketch with.
oh yeah, that's a good idea.
If that helps.
Yeah, you can also, I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but if anybody's a quilter, but if you've used those they're a purple pen that they make for quilters, so you can write on fabric, and the minute it gets wet, it disappears. And those, I used to use those a lot when I was sketching on canvas. I think Dwight Lawing was the one who turned, because his wife Anna is a big quilter, and you can get them at like Patchwork Pig or probably other fabric stores as well. But I know they carry them there because that's where I bought the ones I had, and that really works well. Although you can't leave. I learned that on a very, like in the summer when it's fairly humid, even though it's not that humid here. You can't leave like a watercolor canvas sitting with just the sketch on it for longer than a couple of weeks, or it will completely disappear no matter what. But that's a good idea to use watercolor pencils. I like that idea. That gets so low. I'm not paying attention. There we go. Oh, because it was longer. It's a steeper side. Oh, something else that I didn't feel was important was this big pile of like brush here. That I just didn't. That doesn't really do anything for the composition. Also, I made the roof a little saggier than it really is, just to add a little interest.
Michael, could you put your drawing up?
Yeah. Now, the one I'm doing right now, it's kind of funny. I mean, it anytime you draw something, it changes. So this got kind of shifted more. The whole barn on mine got shifted more in that direction. And so this tree ended up coming kind of across and down into here. which I actually kind of like a little bit better because now I can define this rooftop with a little bit of dark around it. So I can define this corner really easily just by using the tree. But yeah, that's the sketch there if you need that. Do you want me to go back to the regular photo or?
Doesn't matter.
Just for. How's everybody doing? Are we just about?
Yeah, I think I'm done.
I'm done.
Okay. I'm just about done. I'm going to turn off the sharing if that's okay. And I'll show you where I'm at really quickly with mine. Replace spotlight. So I don't know if you can kind of, hey, how's it going? Good. So I'll just kind of zoom in. You can see mine turned out a little bit different than my sketch. I did find my sketchbook, by the way. There's my original sketch. And I ended up moving my barn over a little bit. So, you know, it's okay if it's not on yours or anything. And I've been kind of playing with, that's why this is so dark. And I can just roll my kneaded eraser over it to lighten some of those pencil lines where they're a little too dark. And now that they're a little too light, I can come back in and kind of add those. But you can see I did decide to add this little fence kind of bit in there. You know, it's just kind of this dilapidated fence. Unfortunately for farmers who keep their fences in good shape, they're just not as interesting as a fence that's falling down. So this farmer has a really nice fence, but I've changed it so it's not quite as nice. I also ended up, you know, somehow I ended up with this side being a little bit steeper angle, but that's okay. It just adds interest to the barn. I ended up, you know, putting in kind of a fairly sizable. In fact, this probably should be a little bit, I'm thinking a little bit bigger, this opening here. And I'm not too worried about that pencil line because it'll be fairly dark in there. This is all going to be fairly dark as well. That's just going to be really dark. And then we'll get to do some lifting, which will be fun out of there. But this is kind of the thing. I kind of started, you know, hinting that this is made of vertical boards. Actually, I think, yeah, I think that's board and batten is what that barn's made out of. You know, the sides of that barn, but we don't have to go to that much detail. But that's kind of what this is. I'm going to kind of divide it because there's, you know, there's some boards going this way, but up here they'll kind of divide here in the middle, just to add interest to that. And I don't know if that's centered or not, but it's okay if it's not because I can move it and change it later. But what I'm going to do is a lot of times I'll tape these fence posts off, but I'm not going to do that because I want you guys, even though I'm planning on putting these in, I want you guys to see that you can add things later after you've completely finished your painting, where you feel like you need something. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave those as, you know, without masking them off with masking tape or let's see, I need a sort of a thing going on over there just to kind of divide between that and that. Just so you can see that you can add stuff later. You can kind of lift and add. So let me just that pencil line up just a bit. And let's see. Get this stuff out of my way. I realized I have not put water in any of my paints yet. Let's see here. So where did my, oh, there it is. Go ahead and get some water. There we go. So I think kind of per usual, I'm going to start with this foreground area because these things will all be darker. Everything up here will be darker than this. So I can put in a nice, easy bit of field, grassy stuff, and then I can actually overlap all pretty high up on here, and then I can come back in and sculpt those shapes, those grassy shapes. So I'm going to start with my my 1-inch flat brush. This guy. And I've got I've got a fairly messy palette. I'll just kind of show you what I'm doing here. There we go. Maybe. Get it. It kind of moves. And I'm not too worried about keeping anything super pure. I have some of this permanent yellow deep right here already on my palette. I can add a little more right in there. It's actually got a little bit of green in it, which is okay because I'm going to add a little green. I have permanent green number 1 right here, which I know I'm going to use. Because while this is a summer field, I took this in the summer. Green grass is just green grass. I like to add other colors to it to make it a little more interesting. And that's one of the things that I think watercolor really lends itself to doing, is just doing these interesting washes. So I grabbed some, I have permanent green number 1, permanent yellow deep, permanent yellow orange. Later I could add a little permanent yellow lemon if I wanted. I could even come in, this is permanent red right there. I can just get that wet a little bit, maybe add just a bit more color. And I can add other colors as I see fit. Maybe get a little opera ready to go, because I'm sure I'm going to use that. I may even use a little peacock blue. Who knows? These are just colors I like. You can use something similar if you want. So I'm going to grab, and this is just that first, really loose wash. I'm going to start with a little permanent yellow deep. And I'm going to come in somewhere over in here. Maybe it doesn't really matter. I could start on either side, but I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start on the left and kind of, maybe I'll move into a little permanent yellow orange down in here, maybe back into that permanent yellow deep. I didn't really clean my brush out between either of those. So there's a little bit of everything on there now. Permanent yellow deep. Let's go into some permanent yellow green. Maybe over here it's a little greener. Yeah. And you'll notice I'm just painting right over those fence posts. So don't fret about that. It will all work out in the end. So I'm going to grab a little permanent yellow orange again, maybe over in here. Let that kind of do its thing. Back to this permanent yellow deep. And you can see I'm overlapping, clearly overlapping. Now over here where this side's going to be in a little more light, I can soften that overlap so there's not quite as sharp a line, but over here it's not that important. Let's come back in with some of this permanent yellow green, or permanent green down in here, and just kind of see what happens there. Maybe Maybe drop in a little red in this area. Again, this is the way I look at this is all about experimenting with color and having a good time kind of playing with colors that complement each other, but may not necessarily be things that you think should be right, you know, should go next to each other or would blend. You know, opera and that permanent green #1, probably not something I'd mix on my palette, but if they mix on the paper, really interesting things can happen. Same with that permanent red. Not something I would normally mix together on the palette, but let's put that down there. I don't know if that's gonna be in shadow eventually anyway, but I don't mind that little burst of pop a little more up in there too. You know, when they run in together, they create all sorts of interesting color combinations and change, you know, shapes and things. So one color will displace another and they'll sort of mix together. And I think I need a little more bright yellow right in there. And then let's just pull that down into there. That's kind of our first wash. Maybe bring some more of that red across. Let it kind of do its thing. And maybe drop in a little more permanent yellow deep right in here because I really like that bright. So I want some of that to stay bright. And I can add more later to it in a different glaze. Let's see, I'm gonna pick up some of this. You can see I've got a fairly good bead of water and paint down here at the bottom. So if I just squeeze out my brush, I can go and pick up a lot of that excess water. And then it won't run back up and cause weird shapes right next to the edge of my paper. When I was first starting out, I used to not pay attention to that, and I'd get these really interesting shapes right next to the edge. And when I was matting a painting, I'd always try to save those because they were so interesting, but they were right next to the edge of the paper, you know, right next to the edge of the painting, and having something really interesting at the edge of the painting is, you know, kind of not a good idea. Well, not kind of, it's not a good idea because, you know, it allows people to escape. They don't have to, you know, you don't sort of trap them there in the composition. You want them to kind of get lost in that movement around through your painting. And if I have something really interesting right there, or even down here in the corner or something, that people can look at that and then they're off to the next thing. Any questions about that? Or what we're doing so far? I'm going to say no. Guess not. Let me just soften that, because that'll be a little bit lighter up in there. I just want to soften that line, even over here where it's going to overlap with some pretty dark colors. I don't mind softening that up just a bit. But that can be our first wash. I think I've got this kind of shape right there is kind of strong. I'm going to break it up just a little bit with some water and see what happens. Just by adding a little water in there just to break that shape up a bit. Yeah. So really all that is just my initial light wash. I may, just because it's mostly yellows and reds right now. Doesn't mean that I won't come back in and add more green later. Because I want it to look a little bit more summery. Summery, is that the way I used that? I don't think that's really a word. Summer-like versus closer to the autumn where grasses are dying and you know, everything's kind of turning yellow and brown and stuff. So even though I have a lot of that going on right now, I think I am going to add just a bit more opera right up in here just to see kind of what happens now that it's slightly dry in some spots. You get some interesting, when it's slightly dry like that, you get some interesting blossoms. Versus when it's wet, you get blossoms, but when it's almost dry and you plop in a little color or a little water, you start to get even more interesting blossoms. Yeah, I think that'll work. So yeah, just because this is really yellow now doesn't mean, oh, hey guys, sorry about that. I don't know how long, hopefully you weren't waiting very long. I just noticed you guys were sitting there in the waiting room. Yeah. I think, see, that's too dry right there. I don't even know if you can see what happened there, but the water that I dropped on there just bubbled up, you know, just formed a little water bubble or droplet or whatever, because it was too dry. But if I dropped some water over here, let's see if I can get that to do anything and focus at the same time. There we go. You can see it's starting to actually move around. Over here, it was just too dry, and that's okay because I don't really want anything that interesting going on right next to the edge of the paper. But you can see that. Wish that would focus better. You can see that that there's a little bit of displaced stuff going on there. Same with within here, you know, where I've dropped some. I've got some sharp edges showing up in here. I can just lighten up a little bit. But yeah. All right, so I'm going to dry this really quick, and then we'll kind of move on to the next thing. And really, it'll just be this little bit, these little bits of light. Well, and actually, there's not going to be any light there, but it'll just be this little spot here. Or maybe I'll do the dark side first because it's a little bit bigger. So that's close enough to dry for I think what I'm going to do down here, it's still a little damp, but well, it's still a little damp right there. All right. that's better. Actually, I think I may just go in and do this side of the dark, and then I can actually do that as well. And normally I'd probably use my 1-inch flat, but I think I'm just going to use my number 10 round. It's not that big a deal to use either of them. Generally, the way, and this may just be my weird logic, but I generally, anything that's got a flat surface, I generally paint with my flat brush, and anything that's got kind of a rounded surface like foliage or whatever, I tend to use a round brush. Again, I don't know, clouds, I'll start using a round brush. I'll start off with a flat, maybe in the sky, and then switch to a round brush. It's just one of those weird, I don't even know why I do it that way, but I do. But I think for this, I can just as easily paint with the side of my brush to get a thicker stroke. When doing something this size, you kind of want to think about that, doing a thicker stroke. And for this, I'm going to start off with some peacock blue. If you had maybe cobalt blue or cerulean blue, that might be a good thing to start with. So I'm going to start with a little peacock blue. I have a little, let's see, let me clean a little spot over here. I'll show you what I'm doing. I've got this kind of gross color right here. And I'll just kind of pick some of that up out of the way. And I've got a little quinacridone violet I could use, or I could have used like alizarin crimson or what is this, permanent magenta as well. Yeah, permanent magenta. It's a little bit redder. That's actually it right there. On camera, it looks very similar. So I'm going to start with a little peacock blue and just kind of paint inside here. This is going to be quite a bit darker, so I'm not going to really worry about painting that eave yet. I'm just going to paint this side of the wall, and apparently my brush is not clean when I picked up that peacock blue, but that's okay. And I'm not going to worry about any of the shapes within the wall. I'm just going to paint a nice wash over them. And while this is going to be in shadow, I don't want it so dark that it's really dark. So I'm starting off light. I can always go back in and add more on top of this later. Let's do that, and then maybe I'll use a little, I think that's royal blue, maybe down in here. Yeah, I don't know. That may be something else, but pull that in like so. I'm not extremely worried about that's something weird going on there. I may even drop a little ochre. I don't want it to go really dark really fast is what I'm saying. I want to kind of ease into that dark. I don't want you guys to be afraid of using darks, but I want you to get used to kind of easing into it. Let me just drop a little more water down on that. Let's see, let's move into a little, I want to use a little Hooker's green now. Right over here, just plain Hooker's green. That's drying, so I got to be a little quicker. I'm just going to pull in this Hooker's green on in there before that dries out. And let's go with a little, I'm going to use just a little bit of this dark violet that I mixed. It's really quinacridone violet and royal blue over here. It seems really dark, but it's not that dark, especially once I add a lot more water. it's just a different violet, really, is all I'm doing here. And again, I'm not going to worry about that eve because that's going to be fairly dark, much darker than what that is, what this side of the barn's going to be. Let's move back into some of this Hooker's Green. Maybe actually I'm going to grab some of this Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix that's over here. We've got a little bit of that. I don't want it too blue. There we go. But just to be a little bit different and get that to run in together. Yeah. So I could have made this a red barn or a blue barn or whatever color. You know, in this case, I think it's just weathered wood. But it's much more interesting if you use a bunch of different colors. I'm going to grab a little quinacridone or permanent magenta and throw that in there too. Pull this kind of down into here. And then as I start to get close to where I've got this grass, let me see if I can kind of pull the camera down. You can kind of see I have some grass kind of sketched in there. As I get down into here, I'm going to just start pulling down little bits with my, this is my number 6 brush. And I can just kind of pull this in. Maybe I'll grab a little blue green over here, pull that down into there. And again, some of this might end up looking much different later, but this is where we start to make that kind of grass stuff. You know, that edge where we sort of start to sculpt the top of this grassy field here. That. This is just some blue that seeped over into the permanent or quinacridone violet that I had, so it's much more blue. You can kind of see what happened. This blue that I put in the green there ran over into here, and I just grabbed a little of that, and it just gave me a different color to use. And don't worry if this looks weird down here. Right now, all we're doing is kind of coming in and let's see, I am going to put in a little more of this dark purple up here. We're just putting in some colors. I want a little more of that up in here. I feel like my opera that I placed in there kind of displaced a little bit too much color. So I'm going to just drop in a little bit more, maybe even a little bit more peacock blue right up in here. The fun thing is this just, you know, it ends up looking like a barn, but it's a more interesting barn. It could just be all one color, but why would you do that? That's not as fun as playing with color like this. So that's good enough. You know, some of this I'll come back in and soften out. Let me pull some of that up in there. And let's see. I kind of want, I don't even care. So I'm gonna put this back up here. I'm not too concerned with this being all on the same plane. So let me kind of make that look like it's not got a weird thing happening right here. So I'm just going to kind of hide that shape with a little more paint. In that case, I think it was some, well, it was more royal blue than green. And then I'm just going to come in across here and go ahead and paint that shape. Let me use a little. So I have that green. That's royal blue and Hooker's Green leaning more towards the royal blue side. And then if I come over and grab a little of the royal blue quinacridone violet, I can, with a little more on the blue side. In fact, let's grab a little more of the violet just to, we'll just kind of come in like so. You don't have to put a lot of color into this strip of dark here. I'm just kind of wanted to mix it up just a bit. But there we go. That's that. I want that to be a little bit darker. So I'm just going to pull that, drop a little of that violet mix that I made right in there. And I'm getting a weird little blossom there that I don't care for. I'm just going to take care of that with a little more color. Carried away with the paint. But you can see that's that whole dark side of, plus the shadow cast on the from the roof overhang. Let's see. And I didn't get too carried away with the dark. It is quite a bit darker than this, but by no means is it really, really dark. And if I ever felt like it was, all I have to do is drop a little more water in it and it lightens it up in some spots. And the reason I'm doing these little blossoms now is because it's dried enough to where some of those will kind of show up, and that'll be interesting texture on the wood. I just do not like that. We'll just add a little more paint. So yeah, that's not too shabby. How's everybody doing? I think oh, there you go. I was
okay. Not a little scary, but okay.
well. It's okay to be a little frightened. I have to tell you, I most of the time when I'm painting, I'm pushing my comfort level, or I try to, unless I'm doing something that I've done before, where I've kind of worked out the issues. But even then, I try to push my comfort zone a little bit, so I'm never really totally comfortable. And I think it all goes back to Carl Purcell once said, if you want an adrenaline rush, paint with watercolors. If you want to just relax, paint with oils. So it's okay to be a little nervous when you're painting. Carl paints with both watercolors and acrylics. I mean, not acrylics, oils. And so he likens, he says he can usually relax a little bit more painting with in oils, but that he has a little more fun painting in watercolors. So so it's okay to be a little frightened and a little nervous. That's part of the experiment. And just keep telling yourself, well, we're just experimenting, we're just playing around. This doesn't have to be anything.
Well, you should see these blossoms on the front of the barn. They are really overpowering.
That's okay, because you can go back in later and either take some of them out or I mean, I've got some pretty wacky ones myself. So, some of these, they may not stay there. So, but they may. I know that part of this is going to get covered up with a big dark door. So I'm not overly concerned. So you guys shouldn't be either.
Okay.
Okay. And by the way, I think I was getting some weird feedback, so I muted everybody. So if you want to say something, you may have to unmute yourself. Okay, so I'm going to dry this really quickly. And you'll see it'll lighten up quite a bit. In fact, you can even see a little bit of the yellow that was on there showing through, but I kind of like that. And again, like here, I can tell on mine. I mean, this is way too sharp on some of this. So I'll go back in and soften a lot of this later as I start to work on this foreground again. Now I'm going to paint this light side of the barn really quickly. And I think I'm trying to decide if I want to start. It's not a huge space, so I don't have a lot of room to play around with you know, getting kind of wacky, kind of like I did here. But I do want to add a little bit of variety. I think what I'm going to do is start off with a little, just a wee bit of permanent yellow deep, and then kind of move into the permanent yellow orange. And I'm just going to use a fairly small brush. Not this one, that's way too small. I'm going to use the number 8 round. Again, just because this is a small space. And, you know, if I were painting by myself, I probably would have done it with my 1-inch flat, but then again, I might not have. So I'm just going to come in, bearing in mind that I'm going to have a fairly large shadow cast down on this. But I'm just going to start with a little bit of this permanent yellow deep over here on this kind of, you know, the sun's coming in kind of from this direction. So in my mind, that would be kind of the brightest spot. And it may be a little too dark or too saturated, but that's all right. I'll just lift some of that back out with water. And then I'll move into some permanent orange. Kind of along that way, just like so. And down into where it's meeting with the grass. Let's pull that over some more, a little more water. And I think I'm going to finish up with a little permanent red. Because in my mind, this barn is red, even though in real life it's faded wood. So even though it doesn't really look red, it's a red barn. Which is why I'm putting this red here. But I don't want it all one shade of red. I want different, you know, different looking. Let's come back with a little of that there. I think what I need to do is pick up some of this excess water and then put a little paint down. There we go. I had just a wee bit too much water right there. So I just squeezed out my brush, and then let's pull this over here. And just kind of come down. So. Oh, I could even drop in a little, just because I can. I'm gonna put in just a bit of opera in there. Now that looks just like a dot of color that I dropped in there. Let me just kind of pull it. But by kind of cleaning my brush out and then moving it around with a slightly damp brush, now it's no longer a blob of opera. It's just another little bit of color in there. So do the same with that little bit of opera there. And there we have it. The light side of the barn, which may be a little too much, but I can come back in and add a little more water. Or I may just decide, yeah, I want it to be that vibrant. I think I'm going to leave it kind of the way it is. Let me come back in here and see if I can't pick some of that back up. Just to kind of soften it as we get closer to the edge of the paper. Yeah. Little blobs of water right there. Yeah, I think that's okay. How's everybody doing so far?
All right.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Oh, good. Okay. Let's see. I did push record, just double checking again. I panic about midway through class if I can't remember if I pushed record, but I did. Okay. So I think I'm going to add a little bit of this background foliage now. I could come in, actually, and maybe that's what I'll do first, is come in and kind of, I mean, this isn't really a big thing, so I could probably do this, and then some of this stuff back in here. Again, I'm not worried about, let me just show you again. I'm not worried about these fence posts that I have sketched in here. I'm committed to them now because I've painted yellow over them and there's no way I can erase them. So I am committed to putting these fence posts in. But I just want you guys to see that it's possible to add stuff later. So real quickly, I'm going to start, and this is just a dark, I think I was using indigo here with a little green, a little hooker's green, probably. Maybe I'll add just a bit more. Yeah, well, that's too much hooker's green, but that's okay. We'll pull in a little, I think it's this one, yes. All the blues look the same, they all just look dark until you get them on the palette. So there's a little indigo and hooker's green mixed in. And then just for giggles, I'm going to add a little over here, a little quinacridone violet, just to, in case I want to gray it up a little bit. But I don't think I do. I think I want mostly kind of a blue green. So that's what's going on here. And this is just going to be kind of dark. I may come in and drop a little opera in here in a second, just so it looks like maybe some lights bouncing off of something. But this is just going to be a nice dark Eve coming in there. We'll just kind of come in Like so. Maybe I will switch over to some of this more purple. So I've got this quinacridone violet blue mix over here. Let's grab a little of that. There we go. And I think just to change it up just a bit, we'll just come in like so, pull that down, and then it just ever so slightly overlaps that corner and defines that corner of that wall right there, and then comes in like so. Let's pull some of that back up into there. So it's a nice dark, let me show you what I'm talking about. Nice dark shadow, but you can see where it now defines that little bitty bit of a corner there. And I'm going to do the same right here. So I think I'll just start with the same, this violet, this dark violet, indigo, and quinacridone violet mix, which looks black. I promise you it's not. It does on screen, but maybe we'll start with that. And then just go into the green. We'll kind of come back down here. And this is going to come in and also just come below that edge of the wall. So it kind of defines the corner of that wall as well. Shapes, and it's just but now that adds a little bit of dimensionality to that. I'm even though there probably wouldn't really be one, I'm going to add just a bit of a drop shadow later on top of this already shadow space, just to really define that and push this wall back just a bit. In fact, while we're doing these darks, let's go ahead and just do the darks on this wall, and then we'll get to that foliage. So these can actually just be whatever, I've got that violet, indigo, blue mix, or indigo, green, violet, indigo, and green mix that makes a really nice dark. And I'm just going to come in and paint that right over here where I had that doorway, that big barn doorway. Let's see, we're going to do a little of it slightly greener. Maybe just some indigo, pure indigo down in there. This could be any kind of dark blue or whatever dark green that you've mixed up or that you have. Let's grab a little more violet, just so we have just a little bit more variation. I'm just gonna kind of plop that in there. It's a little hard to tell on screen. I don't even know if you can see it well, you can almost start to see a little bit of variation in color. And then I'm just gonna pull this down like so. I'm not too worried about this grassy stuff here, but I kind of want to save some of it. I can even come back in and lift some more back out. Let's move that around, pull that in. We've got that nice big barn door. We'll come in and lift some things out of there as well later. Put a little more of that green up in there to make it look like you can kind of see in there. I always like these dark spaces that you can almost see into, so you just see little hints of stuff. So there's that. Let's come in. Let's see. I think I had like a horse stall kind of window looking thing over here. Let's put that in. I'm not too concerned with it being perfectly square. Yeah, there. And then I've got a little like a hay loft door up here. So we'll kind of put that in. Again, doesn't have to be perfectly rectangular. Maybe there's something sticking up there. I don't know. And then I've got a doorway that I drew in over here somewhere. And paint, you know, kind of knocked out my pencil line. So I'm just going to kind of guess that it's somewhere over in this neck of the wood, maybe. Maybe it comes up just a bit higher. So I've got kind of a door, a people door maybe or something. Maybe there's a workshop or something on that side. Who knows? Yeah. Oh, and I can see I've already smeared something with my finger, but that's okay. I can fix that later. So there's kind of the dark openings, you know, the shapes that are going to be in the side of this barn. You know, the big ones anyway. I may come in and have little spots where you can see through the boards or something. This barn on that road to the Durango airport is, you know, it's board and batten. There's not a lot of gaps or anything. Let's just fix that real quick. But I'm using it as inspiration to kind of paint this maybe slightly older, more dilapidated barn. And it's certainly not as symmetrical as the source. You know, this side is way different from that side, but that's all right. Maybe in my barn, you know, this side was built second. Maybe it only had one little wing coming off of it when it was originally built, and then they built this little shed thing on the side here. Who knows? Okay, so let's do this kind of background foliage stuff back there. And those are kind of, you know, in the photo, there's not a lot back there. There's some scrubby stuff back there. But I wanted a nicer transition between this kind of mountain shape back here and this field. In the photo, there's some scrubby trees way off in the distance, and I kind of moved them forward a little bit. And in the photo, they're kind of brown. But I'm going to make mine a little more, you know, summer-like. There we go. That's summery. Sounds like I'm saying I'm summarizing something. So I'm going to start off with just a hint of permanent yellow deep, just to catch some of these areas of light. Just going to kind of pull in some of those. I'm imagining whatever that looks like behind the post. I can't remember. I erased it. So I've got this kind of light yellow gold right up in there. And then I'm going to come in with some permanent yellow green, or permanent green number 1. I'll show you what I'm doing on my palette here. I want to make sure it's fairly watery. I want a lot of water. Oops, you can't see what I'm doing. There we go. A lot of water. And then I'm going to come back in and just kind of paint these shapes. In this case, I'm using that small number 6 brush, just because it's not that big. You know, it's just not that big a shape. So I'm not overly concerned with. Yeah. With using a larger brush, just because there's not going to be a lot of detail in it. There we go. And these are just some generic brushy shapes back there. But you can see it's already kind of easing that transition between this and that, and it kind of helps push this back more. Let's see, let me grab a little, I'm going to grab a little lemon yellow and plop that in up here. It's probably what I should have used to begin with, because it's got a little tint of green in it, and you know, it's a very subtle green, but kind of blends nicely with that. And again, this is just the very beginning, the very first wash on these little tree shapes. As I get down in here, I'm starting to pay attention to this grassy stuff. So I'm not painting a straight line across there. I'm letting it be kind of jaggedy. You know, if I zoom way in, you can see it's not, you know, there's not a lot to that, but it's going to start looking like, let's change the shape. I want to bring some of that lemon yellow up into there. I don't really like that shape. Other cool thing is I can change the shape with that mountain back there too. If I want that mountain to be darker, a lot of times I'll do really light mountains to kind of push them further back. But this one, maybe this one will be a little darker. I don't know, may not. We'll just see. Lift some of that back out. I'm not too worried about these shapes, just because, again, they're kind of over by the edge of the paper. I don't want to make them too interesting, or they'll lead people out of the painting. But they need to be there for context. You know, they're a device that helps push that back and push this forward. I'm just going to dry this because I don't want to stick my hand in it. There was still a little bit of a glare there, and I think what I have some of the medium that sometimes you'll notice, like your colors might separate out. I know mine hasn't done it in a while, but my Andrews turquoise right here sometimes will separate out, so it'll look like there's a lot of gold stuff on it. So it looks really weird, and that's the painting medium, the binder that kind of holds the color together and is water soluble. And sometimes you'll get a little of that when you get a lot of paint, which I had right here. I had a lot of paint. Sometimes, and it'll look glossy on your on your painting. It's a little weird. So you can't tell that your painting's dry. So I'm going to come in with this tree now. Is everybody doing okay? All right. So I'm going to move back up to my number 10. Whoa, my number 10 round. And I'm going to start off, I think, with a little lemon yellow this time instead of. I'm going to start with the lemon yellow and then possibly move into. I'm trying to kind of clean it. You can't really see what I'm doing, but I'm trying to clean this out just so there's a little less green in it. There we go. So I'm going to come up here and kind of hit some highlights. Oops, now you can't see what I'm doing over there. See if I move that. I'm going to hit some highlights, spots where I think maybe there'll be some lighter areas, and I'm going to make it bigger than what I think that area will be, because I don't know how much light will be hitting this, but I want to have plenty of this yellow kind of in there. That's pretty good. Pull some down into there. Obviously, I want this to be fairly dark next to the light of the barn roof, but a little too much paint in there. Just add a little water. And now I'm going to come in with that permanent green number 1. Let's see here. Let's come in over here. And really the yellow, it's not that the leaves are turning yellow. It's just that they're catching that light. This comes in over there. Light there. And I'm just, I'm going between using the kind of tip of my brush. I'm using side motions. I'm rolling the brush, all to just kind of move the paint around in shapes that feel kind of tree-like. I don't know what kind of tree this is. Well, I mean, if I look at it, I can tell it's an elm tree in the photo, but in my painting, I don't know what kind of tree it is, and it's not important what kind of tree it is. Let's bring a little more of this over here. I want to make sure I follow this line pretty carefully, just so it's clean, because this is going to be the thing that defines this roof, is going to be this edge. So I want it to be fairly clean. A little water. And again, this is all just our first layer. This isn't the finished tree. Right now it looks pretty lame as far as trees go. It doesn't. It just looks like some green and yellow paint slapped on the paper. But that's okay, because right now that's all it is. Later, it will start to look like a tree once we start getting more darks in there and adding more. Well, the dark will help add more volume to the tree. We'll just keep adding. But this is that first kind of glaze, right? And then this is going to come down somehow into there. It's just going to be a dark back there, probably. So there's not going to be a lot of detail, but it will be kind of this color. Maybe that comes up a little bit more. I don't really like that shape that I had right there, so I just kind of took a second to change it. We'll just pull that out over there even more. So that's going to be what defines that roof. I may even completely lose this line later. That's right here. I could, you know, even if yeah, you guys can see, even if I come in and erase it, which I can't totally erase it because I drew it too many times, but you can still, even though it's mostly gone, you can still kind of imagine that it even though you can't really see that anymore, you can see that it comes to there and it finishes right there. So you infer that in your imagination. So I'm going to grab a little permanent green number 2, just to add, before this gets too dark, just to add a little bit more darker green into some of this area. Maybe just touch it there. Not a lot, just dropping some in. Right now it looks a little weird, like I've literally just dropped little blobs of paint, which technically I have. But I'm going to come back in and add a little more water. Pull that down in there, and let's grab a little more of that because this is going to be. And that just gives me a little bit more variation in that green. I could grab, in fact, I may just do that. I'm going to grab a little peacock blue and throw that in here in some spots. You know, it doesn't really look like peacock blue anymore, but it adds a little color and value change. I don't like that shape, but I'm going to wait till it dries to fix it. I like what's going on there. That's okay. Come back to the permanent green number 1. Maybe that whole thing is going to be green right there instead of yellow. Grab a little permanent green number 2 down in here. And I think, I don't like that just seemingly straight line that I painted there, so I need to break that up just a bit. Yeah. So right now it just looks like a big old mess, but trust me when I say it will come together later as we add more darks. These are not darks. Those are very light midtones. and obviously this is very light there. You know, it's light, but I don't want you to think those are darks because it's contrasting pretty good against the white of the paper, but that's not going to always be that white. Yeah. I think that's all right. Anybody have any questions or anything? Okay. That's a weird shape. I just want to kind of soften. It's a little hard to see on screen, I think, but because there's a glare from the light, but I don't even know if is that better without that light or with the light?
I can't really tell a difference.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, see with
I agree. Can't tell.
Okay. I'm just going to do it without it because it causes weird glares to me. And I wonder if I think that's just going to be the way it is. Until I find some better lighting. I need better studio lighting for filming. Okay. So, I could go back in and work on that a little bit, but I don't think I'm going, well, I think I might. So what I'm going to do is come in a little bit more here with just a little bit darker green. I'm going to use a little bit smaller brush too, because I've got this really big brush. I think I'll go, well, I think I might even move to my number 6 round. And I'm going to come in with a little hooker's green. Even though I didn't use any of the permanent green number 2 on here, I'm just going to skip into the hooker's green here. And I'm just going to start adding some darks down in here at the bottom of these trees. And then I'll pull them up. So I added a little bit, and then I'm going to just get my brush, clean my brush out, get it wet, and then just kind of soften some of these edges here. So I kind of like that little shape right there. It's a little, so I want it to be a little sharp. And then as I soften this, let me see if, I'm not sure you guys can see that. So I'll just pull that down. We'll just pull in some of that. This can come up into here. So there'll be a little bit of dark over here. But you can see we're starting to give this bunch of trees a little bit of volume now. Before it was just kind of a flat light shape. But now by adding a little bit darker, and again, these aren't super darks yet. This is just hooker's green. It's not particularly super dark. We'll just kind of come in here. And I'm painting this through that post, where that post is going to go, because I don't want it to look like I have, like something stops right there, and then something completely different picks up over here. So I'm painting through there. I'm going to end up lifting some of that back out, but that's okay. Let me pull some of that back up in there. It's a little too dark, and then it suddenly gets a little too light. If I can't pull it back up, I'll add a little more, let it run back down. And then this kind of can come in like so. Again, I'll probably end up softening a lot of this bottom area where the tree kind of meets the field. But you know what I don't like? I just realized is I have 3 very even bumps there. So I'm going to change that shape by bringing little, this is just going to come up into here. Like so. And what I did was I put in a little lemon yellow there. And then I grabbed a little permanent green number 2 and plopped that in. And then I just added a little water to get them to run. And they'll just kind of run down into everything that I've done so far. And that completely changed that shape. Little hooker's green right here. So now I don't have 3 even bumps. I have, one kind of here and then another bigger, kind of odd shaped thing there. Had a few little tick mark kind of things in there for some sort of shrub kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of lucky that I did that because I don't know how I did this, but I like what's going on there. I think that was just adding the water afterwards. Well, I know that's what did it. I'm gonna come in with a little more lemon yellow right in there. I'm not going to worry about any pencil lines or anything. Those are there, and that's just part of the process. Don't like this shape that happened here. I'm going to come in and lift some of that back out, soften it, but then I can come back over and grab some Hooker's Green and change the shape just by adding a little bit of a thing going on there. So now I have, you know, another little blobby shape of foliage that's sticking out in front, and that's cool. So that's just a little bit of making that foliage work a little bit better. Talking so much, I'm extremely dry. Grab another water bottle here. Any questions or anything so far? No? All right. Well, looking at it, so I sort of stepped back, and by step back, I mean I glanced at my laptop, and I can see that I don't like this shape that I've got here. This is getting bigger the further away it goes. So I need to kind of bring this down, this corner here, down a little bit more. And that's actually pretty easy to do, even though this is dry. And actually the same's going here. I really need to bring this whole corner down somewhere into here, into that area. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of pull this. Let's see, I know that's permanent yellow, orange, and then I've got some permanent red. So I'm just going to clean I'm using my number 6 because it's fairly small. I'm going to grab some permanent yellow, orange, and I'm just going to pull the corner of this down quite a bit more. I'm not going to worry about any of that pencil line or anything. It's there, but by pulling this down, let's see, let's grab a little red, a little permanent red, drop that in there. It will help the perspective on this barn look a little better. You know, maybe there's a big clump of grass or something going on here that clumps up. What I may do is just, I know that looks like I'm outlining that. Let me zoom in on that for you. I know that looks like I'm just outlining that shape there, but I'm going to pull that back out. To get rid of the double kind of bump. Actually, I'm just going to do that. But you can see now that's starting to look a little bit better by pulling this corner down. Obviously, I have to do the same over here, but that's helping the shape of this side of the barn. Let me grab a little hopper. And even if I have some spots where I've got some weird breaks, like here, I'm going to end up with a couple little lines. I can pull some of those around and do some stuff. So they just look like texture on the wood. So I'm not overly concerned with that. I do need to, let's get that down in there. I do need to dry this really quickly. Maybe. Come on, there we go. At least this one side. And then I can fix my other side of the barn. That's probably good. So I'll just come in with that same, I think I was using indigo and Hooker's green there. I think it's a little more on the blue side, so I'm going to grab a little of that and just pull this down like so. Maybe a little darker, less water, more paint in this case. And just kind of pull that across so it starts to look a little bit more like it's part of this, same structure. That's going to be a little too dark there, but that's all right. We'll just put a little down and then pick it up, soften it with the water. And I can always make this window darker too. That window's not that dark anymore. It's dried quite a bit. Let's come in. Let's see. That's a little violet kind of coming in over here. And I know that looks really dark, but it's not really that dark. Pull that up. And I know that didn't have opera there, but I'm plopping that in on top there just because I like that little pop of color right there. Put a little over there too. Yeah. So I think that fixed that problem. That was really bugging me that it was going, that it had the angle was going that way when it really should have been kind of, and really the problem I think I don't know. It really should have just been, a little straighter across, a little more parallel to the bottom of the page. If not slightly up towards the back. And I think just pulling that corner down helped anchor that just a little bit better. I'm a little happier with it. I don't know if you guys needed to do the same thing, but that's what happened there. It was just a fix on my end that I needed to do. I don't see how that blob is right there. I don't know if you can see that very clearly, but I'm going to come in with just a little bit of this violet blue mix. Kind of hide that a little bit, hopefully. Just by adding a little. And I'm not overly concerned with it being a smooth finish. This is the side of an old barn, but you know, after all, so there we go. All right. Yeah, pretty happy with that. I feel like that helped that a little bit just by pulling that corner down. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to do this mountain, I think, now. That's dry. And that'll kind of start to really help tie things in. Then we can maybe fiddle around with the roof a little bit. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna look. I think, you know, I kind of like the purple dark, like almost purple look to the mountains. You know, they're kind of blue purple going on back there. I really like how those look in the photo. So I'm going to see if I can't do something like that. I don't want it to be as dark as this. But if I accidentally get it as dark as that, I can always make that a little bit darker. But if I make that a little bit darker, I'll probably have to make these a little bit darker too, which I may already have to make that one a little darker. We'll see. So I think I'm going to use my number 8 round for this, just because it's bigger but not so big. I think normally I'd use the flat, but I think it's just a little bit too big. And I'm going to go with a little indigo and violet mix, and I'll show you what I'm doing here. So I had some of that violet down, and I put a little indigo on top of it. I'm going to grab a little more of that violet. So I get that. And actually, I have a little bit, you know, I'm getting a little bit of that blue green. I could even come over here and soften some of this Hooker's green royal or indigo mix and plop that in there as well. So I've got a little bit darker, you know, blue, green, purple color there, and a little slightly lighter violet, dark violet there. And let's see where this takes us. I'm just going to come in now. Right away, that looks obviously too dark, but that's okay, because I'm going to come in with water. I think that's a little too gray, so I'm going to grab a little more violet over there. I plopped a little more violet on my palette, and we'll just pull that in like so. That's a little bit better. And maybe even I'm going to grab a little, actually, I might use a little royal blue. It's a little bit bluer. Yeah, there we go. So I've got a little royal blue in there. And it's okay if I have multiple colors on there. It's not a big deal. And let's go back to this kind of purple. But I do like the blue right in here. So. Lighten that up just a bit. Now, while it's while it's wet, sorry about that. While it's wet, I can pick up a little bit if it's a little too dark, which I felt like it was. Let's come in with a little of that violet over here. And then as I get down to these trees, I kind of want to just start thinking about the tops of these trees and what they look like. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the shape that it is right now. I can actually make it bigger. I can come in and overlap something to change the shape. You know, I can do whatever I want there. And I think that this tree is going to have a little, and if I leave a little white in some spots, that makes it look like, you know, the sun's catching it even more. So we'll come in and change that shape a little bit. But now it looks like, you know, I kind of like that tree shape. So okay, juniper or pinyon or something. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't matter. I shouldn't name it. So just bringing that in. I like that shape. See, I don't like this smooth, weird shape that was going on over here, so I can change it by painting this dark over the top. Come on down into there. Really dark down in there, I think. Pull some of this dark back up in there. Maybe there's just a hint of more dark in some areas up in there. Now that looks weird because I just dropped it on there without doing anything, but now I can come back in and add a little water, let that kind of run. It was still wet enough to where nothing was really happening. I want to kind of fix this little, I'm going to use my, nothing was really happening. It wasn't running, so I added a little bit more water is what I was trying to say there. I'm going to use my number 6 brush just to kind of ease that point right in there. So there's not a little, there was a little tiny white gap right there that I didn't want because it looked weird. So we'll pull that in. Let's see what happens when you add a little more water to some spots. Pull this down. Change that shape because I didn't care for it. And pull this down into here. Some of that I need to pick back up. I need to switch back to my number 8 brush. Just kind of pick some of that back up in some spots. So I get kind of an interesting mottled look. Let's bring this down into here. Cover up that weird mistake where my finger smudged the paint. I don't really like that blossom right there for some reason. Normally I probably would have, but that for some reason I didn't care for. And then let's just finish this out. I don't want this weird line that's going to be there where that dried and the other is wet. We'll just kind of bring that in like so. I think this needs to, you know, I lightened that up quite a bit with water, and I think I got a little too carried away with the water, so I want to kind of tie that darker bit in. Let's try that one more time. So I'll just drop on some paint while it's wet there and then drop just a wee bit more water in. And kind of move that around. See what we got going on here. Let's fix that. Weird. Yeah. So I think I will have to kind of hit this down just a bit to make it even darker, but that's okay. That's okay. There we go. Yeah. That's not too shabby, I don't think. Let me step back for a second and take a look at it. Is everybody doing okay? I'm going to assume by your silence that you are.
Okay, so far.
All right. Let's see, that's a weird shape. I'm just going to pick that up if I can. Oh, that's already seeped into the paper. I may have had a weird blotchy spot on the paper or something. And if this, you know, this is going to be fairly dark right there. Before that dries, I can squeeze, you know, I can squeeze most of the water out of my brush. It's wet, but it's not, you know, it's damp, but it's not full of water. And I can come in and pick some of this really dark back up before it dries, so I won't get quite as dark an edge there. And just squeeze it out, pick up a little. Squeeze the brush out. Maybe you need to put a little bit back, but that's all right too. Yeah. That's a weird little shape, but that's okay. I can kind of smooth that out. Yeah, I can already tell I'm definitely going to have to do a little something to those eaves, but that's a little weird right there. But if I'm quick, I can actually pick some of that back up. So it's not quite as dark around those eaves. Maybe even back in there. Yeah, there we go. So that was still wet enough where I could kind of pick some of that back up before it dried. I think that works all right. Yeah, not too shabby. And then once it dries fully, I think it'll dry quite a bit lighter as well, or at least a fair amount lighter. Or maybe not. Yeah, a little bit lighter. Yeah, that was kind of fun. All right. Let's add a little bit more to our foreground now. Now that we've got some of this stuff in, we can definitely tell that this is too light. I know I said I was going to add a lot more green, but I have so much up in the trees, and I know I'm going to get some more. What do I want to do? I think I'm just going to do some similar stuff to what I've got there. I think. So I think I'm gonna start with I'm gonna use my flat brush again, and just gonna kind of. And again, you could use a round for this as well. I'm just gonna kind of see if there's any shapes, and there's not really. This was fairly wet when I was dropping more water on there, so I didn't get. Unlike up here, I didn't get as many blossoms. So I think I'm just going to kind of come in. I just put a little permanent red in my brush. And I'm just going to kind of come in. Kind of an interesting shape going on here. And I'm just using the corner of my brush. For this, it doesn't have to be, I may even go in and add another glaze on top of this. We'll see. So this is basically just a texture, add you know, kind of a thing to add more texture to the grass. Let's come in with a little, so that was permanent red. I think I'm going to add a little permanent yellow orange in a few spots. And I'm just, again, I can use the chisel end of the brush. I can, like this, where I kind of, almost a stippling kind of motion. I can wipe with the brush, you know, I can, and brush, I guess would be the proper word, with the brush. I can use just the corner of this round brush to do some stuff. Let me grab a little green. I do like that green that's coming down into here. So I think we'll just add a little bit more of that. In there. And again, this is just some texture stuff. It's not even, let me make sure you can see this. It's not even, you know, I'm not even trying to paint grass. It's just textural stuff. So you can see here's some just kind of abstract-y shapes there. Let's come in with a little, I'm gonna use a little permanent yellow deep up here. So I just plopped some down there, clean my brush out, and then I can move that around. We'll just kind of, I like how light that is right there, but I want a little bit more vibrant color down in here. So we'll just kind of let that come across there. Where I don't like what's going on, I can come back in and pick that up just by wiping my brush and then almost dry brushing that. But I like that little pop of color right there. I think I want another little pop of color kind of over in here. I want to keep, where I added that red, I want to keep some of that light going on up in there. And some of this is going to end up, there's going to be a shadow in here anyway, off of the barn. So some of this will disappear again, but never completely gone, because it will show through the glaze that is the shadow. Maybe a little bit right in there. A little bit of that kind of, I just like that kind of orange amber light you get later in the day. And even though this really technically isn't later in the day, I think it was probably 1 o'clock or noon when I took that photo. I can't remember. You know, I'm changing it. I'm making it mine, so I'm not too concerned. So there's more of that permanent yellow deep, and then I'm going to come back in with you know, a little bit of this green, just texture-wise, or you know, just color variation. And so there's my second glaze, and again, it looks fairly messy. It's not supposed to really look like anything yet. It's just a glaze on top of our first wash. And you know, it's called a glaze because you can see the first wash underneath it. It's technically a wash as well. So sometimes I realize that I pop back and forth between calling it a wash and a glaze. In this case, they're kind of the same. The glaze is just because you can still see that original color coming through. Pick some of that back up. But it's, you know, it's kind of a mess at the moment, I know, but that's okay. It's going to look kind of messy for a bit. And I know you guys don't believe me about the fence post. Really, it's probably me that's having some doubts, but I think it'll be fine. Keep that up in there. Yeah. So that was just, I added a little bit more of that permanent yellow deep here and right there. Just to, again, give it that pop of color. It's okay that it's, you know, not looking like anything yet. Let's see here. I'm going to add just a little bit more dark. Well, I'm not sure that I need to. I think it's okay. I am going to add just a bit more right there. I feel like I lifted that out just a bit too much. So I'm just going to come in with some indigo. That indigo, and I'll show you here. This is just pure indigo right there, and then I'm kind of moving it over into this. Oops, there we go. Pure indigo right here, and I'm moving it over into this kind of indigo Hooker's green mix. So it's a little more on the blue side. And I'm just going to come in and redo this whole little guy right here. Just because I can. And I don't care that, you know, I just made that shape a little weird. It's kind of hard to see, but that's the, you know, let's see, that should come up there, I think, a little bit more. This may stick out a little too far, but that's all right. It's a painting, not a photograph. And I can kind of fix that a little bit just by maybe thickening up this just a bit up here. It'll get thinner back down here because I don't want to mess with what I got going on here. But, you know, down in here. And kind of thicken that up just a bit. Yeah. So I think I'm going to add just a bit of a drop shadow. I know there really wouldn't be one, but it's okay to have, you know, double and triple shadows and stuff like that. So I'm going to take this same Hooker's green indigo mix, a little on the indigo side, but not as dark as what I've got going on here. I'm just going to add a little bit of a drop shadow. So I'm just going to pull it in, and it'll just help push. It'll just help push that all back a little bit more. So let's just come in. Like so. Something like that. It, you know, again, it wouldn't really be there, but it helps push that back. And then we'll come back in here and do this one as well. And the other thing, you know, if I end up not liking what I've done, I can always come back in and lift it back out. it won't be that big a deal. That kind of comes down to there. Did that come out that way? I think it would actually come out like that. There we go. I think that's a little more accurate. Maybe. I don't know. It's probably not, but it doesn't matter. It's definitely too dark right now, but that's mostly just because it's wet. There we go. That's better. And then I'm going to do another shadow across here. Let me dry that really quick. Yeah, it's almost imperceptible on screen, but I'll bring that down. You can see it there. And it's just going to help push this wall back a little bit. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of a shadow coming in there. And you'll notice on my roof, I have this little kind of bent area that I drew in here. It's not really on the real barn, but I kind of like to, you know, anytime I'm doing like a metal roof, I kind of like to have little bits where it's not, you know, where it's beat up. Maybe something got leaned against it or, you know, whatever, and caused a bit of some damage. Maybe the wind picked it up or something. I don't. It doesn't really matter why it's like that. I just like that. So I'm going to grab a little quinacridone violet. And maybe, yeah, I think I'm just going to use quinacridone violet for this. And I might drop in a little opera here in a minute. So I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is kind of follow along. You know, I've got this kind of shadow, but then it's going to kind of uptick right there where that roof line kind of did a weird thing. So I'm just going to kind of pull that along, and then this can come back in like so. And then maybe it comes back up here like that, because that roof is not perfect. Grab a little more heat. And just kind of pull that across. That's under there. That's like so. Let me add a little. I'm just going to drop, just for fun, I'm going to drop a little opera into that, like a little maybe reflected light popping into that shadow. And I think I'm going to add just a bit of peacock blue in some spots as well, just to cool that shadow down just a skosh. A little warm. Not that I don't want it to be, you know, that's the warm side of the barn, so I do want it warm, but I want to cool it down just a bit with a little bit of peacock blue. Even just some right in there. A little hard to see. Let me, yeah. That would be too much, so I can always pick some of it. Well, pick some of it, or lighten it up with some water. I want this a little thicker down in there. Maybe a little too late. Starting to get a bit of a line. Again, I'm not too concerned with the fact that that's not a real straight line. In my imagination, this roof line is really, you know, pretty jaggedy. So I realized that this would actually look like that, I think. Anything. Just soften that. Looks a little weird now because it's wet, but it'll be all right. think that's how that would work. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I'm having trouble imagining that. In fact, I may just soften that whole side up just a bit so it's a little less. Yeah, okay. That's a little better. Yeah, and that's just, you know, that little bit of overhang. It helps push that wall back and lifts that roof out. It pulls that out more. That's all that's doing. I kind of screwed up here with the trees. And I got a little green over my corner of my roof there, but that's okay because even though it's kind of lost a little bit, when I come back in with some really dark greens and purples and whatever in this tree, I can fix that a little bit. But I did lift it out just a skosh. So let's see. We've got about 15 minutes left in. Oh. People trying to get back in. Sorry about that. Hopefully you guys weren't waiting that long. I got into painting and wasn't. I try to check back every now and then and see if people are trying to get back in, but that's why I hate having the waiting room, but they make me do that. I don't like having a password and I don't like having the waiting room. They make us do that for, I don't know, so somebody can't hack into the class. Although honestly, I've had zero problem with that because it's not a class that's published. You know, the address isn't published anywhere other than to you guys, so I'm not really worried about it. But the college is making us do that, and so I have to make those waiting rooms and password things. And did you guys have to type in a password?
I did, Michael.
Okay, yeah.
I did too.
Okay, you did. That's the way it's supposed to be, but I can never tell because it doesn't make me type in the password. But for the longest time, I was just doing it where you could just, if you had the link, you could log in, and I get the security issue with that, but at the same time, it's hard when you're teaching and someone is, it's just a hassle. When I'm teaching my Photoshop class, it's not too hard because I'm always looking at the screen, so I can see when someone's trying to log in. But so hopefully you guys weren't waiting to let me in too long.
No.
I'm thinking we have what? About 15 minutes left in class. There is quite a bit more to do here. This is not that close to finished. This looks a little dark, but I think it'll lighten up once it's dry. But what I was thinking is if you guys want it, we got a fair amount done. If anybody wants me to look at their painting now, and I can let's see. Let me look at gallery so everybody's a little bit bigger. So yeah, if you want me to look at your painting now, I could I could do that for the next 15 minutes or so. Or not. I mean, it's up to you guys.
I think I'm gonna go blow dried my picture now, so I'm through for the evening, if that's okay, Michael.
Oh yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, for sure.
Now, we're not,
Yeah.
are we having class next week because of spring break?
No, we're not. So
Okay.
next week is spring break, and we will be back again the following Monday.
Okay, all right.
And I think we have two
Good
or
to know.
do we have two more classes after that? I think we have two more classes after spring break, right?
That I'm not sure.
I'll have to double check, but and then the next, the next session will start right after that, I believe.
Good.
Yeah, you can look at mine. So if I need to make corrections now, I
Okay.
can do that.
Yeah. So let me
And,
oops, that's not the way I wanted to do it. Let me
Michael, I
Yeah.
looked at my calendar and we do have 2 classes after spring break.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was pretty sure we did. So we'll have plenty of time to finish this one, and maybe we'll do like if we have a little bit of time, because I don't think that this will take us the full next class to finish. So I'll have something else we can start as well. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the screenshot. There we go. All right, Kathy, if you want to hold it up
all
there,
right, let me see if I can get it in there.
right there. That's perfect. Got it. Okay, so let's see. Screenshots. Down to Photoshop. Kathy, this is looking really nice. Let me share my screen here. I think this is looking good, Kathy.
Okay, all right.
I might just make these just a bit more dark, just because
Darker?
I know we're going to lift some back out. I like the little bits of light that you've left in there, though, so it doesn't have to be the whole thing. Just just go back in and add another glaze of dark over all of that. Not all of it, but over some of it, because I think we're going to lift out, do some lifting in there to make other shapes as well. Or maybe even turn like that's already starting to look like maybe there's a tractor or something in there. But I would just add just a little bit more dark. Try to leave some of this though that like
Okay.
what I'm outlining there could be dark. And then maybe obviously you wouldn't have these sharp lines, but maybe that what's outlined a little bit darker, and same with this up here, just a little bit darker. That's okay. I don't even mind that one. I think that's probably all right. I just am slightly worried that it's not quite dark enough to lift out of.
To lift out, yeah.
But it's really quite nice. I like it. So you might darken that up a little bit. You might even come in here and create a secondary, and some of this, well, I don't have enough space to do it on mine, but you could, let me create a new layer so I don't feel like I'm ruining something. You could come in with, how you've got some of this darker green in here. You could come in, again, some of this is because this is just the first go on these trees, but you could almost make a secondary, like if I come in and I'm just kind of randomly drawing a bushy shape there.
Okay.
And then, so add a little dark here, and then you could come in and add a little bit of dark down in here, just to help. So you've got it. It kind of breaks up the. I'm not doing a very good job of this, but because it's Photoshop and it's not meant for this. But you know,
Right.
this would be, you know, dark kind of coming up into, you know, other bits. Obviously, it's gonna be softened, whereas, you know, quite a bit as it starts going up into here.
Mhm.
But and then the same with this, you know, you can bring up, and I just sampled that really dark green. It could be lighter greens. You could start off actually with this slightly darker green here, and see how it works. You know, just adding a little of that first, and work your
Okay.
way, you know, work your way into some darker foliage. But just kind of it'll break that up. And you know, obviously this is Photoshop and it has its limitations
Right.
with painting. Well, if I wanted to get really technical and spend like 8 years on this, but none of us have that kind of time.
No.
But you can see how that's starting to make this secondary bunch of bushes there. So it breaks up that shape. Next week or not next week, but next time we'll start. You know, you've already got a little bit of a break, so you have what looks like a tree here, you know, and then you have this other tree over here. So you already have somewhat of a break, and we'll deal with that because we haven't gotten past that. But I was thinking, just since while I was looking at it, you might want to add some more, you know, smaller shrubby things down in here.
Okay.
But really, I think this is looking really nice. I
Yeah,
think,
that's too much of the same value
yeah.
over here.
So here's why I think you need to take all of these darker. What I would do is I would make this whole wall, use these same colors that you've done, but almost not quite this dark, somewhere between what you've got and what this is. Make maybe just another glaze of these dark colors over it. Let that dry, and then go back in and darken the, you know, your entryways. And I think that'll solve this problem right here. Part of it also is that the mountain is so dark, so you may want to just, you know, lighten, like lift just a bit more over here too.
Okay.
Just right in that area. Just kind of lift some of that dark right there out. Yeah, and then I think you'll be in good shape.
Okay.
But yeah, I would just take this whole wall and down another degree of dark, and then take this down another degree of dark.
Okay.
And you'll be in good shape.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? No? Tommy's got his up. I see him. Place spotlight. Okay, let's see here. Oh yeah. There we go. And got it. All righty. I got it. So let's see here. It's really funny. Every time I move something around, it says the host has done this for you or made you do this. And I'm like thinking, I am the host. It doesn't matter if I'm no, come on. There we go. Doesn't matter if I'm doing it on my phone or if I do it on my laptop. It always says the host has done this for you. All right, let's see here. Share screen. So this is looking pretty good. One thing, so you, I like how, I kind of like how you've chosen to make your barn kind of go off the side there. But I'm thinking I might, if I were you, I might, let's see.
Chop it off right there at the end.
Well, what you could do is just
Because I agree.
yeah, I think you could just do this right here.
Yep, yep,
And that'd give you a nice little, kind of, oh, okay, that's where the barn ends.
Yeah. I agree.
I like that though. I think that this and your mountain are the same value. So I feel like you need to take this this wall down back, like make it dark, like kind of like I was saying for Kathy, kind of in between what you've got here and what you've got here, make it just a wee bit darker. And then maybe make these just a bit darker.
Okay.
I'd even make this just a bit darker, but I really like what you've got going there. So take this down a notch and then take that down a notch as well. That kind of shadow that kind of helps separate this and makes it look like it's pushed back. Like this is a separate building that's been added on. And I'm kind of thinking that your mountain needs to kind of, you've got this nice sharp angle coming down, and then your trees kind of do the mimic that. I would pick this back up maybe or something. Maybe not necessarily that shape, but
Okay.
Just because it's given a nice shot. I think by picking it, I'm doing a terrible job there, but by picking it back up, it'll kind of stop people from going woo. It'll give them a little bit of a back into the painting kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I like what you've got going on up in your trees though. That's really neat looking. I'm wondering though, for yours, if you shouldn't bring a little bit more over here. Just, I don't know. Maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe just a little, just because it feels like it's just kind of going, whoop. Maybe this little bit of light that you've got going there. Just, bring a little bit of that down here to kind of anchor it. Like that. That may be all it needs. Something.
Well, you're going to work on this a little bit more. And mainly the roof. What are you going to do with the roof? And I mean, I can wait. But...
Oh, yeah. So with that, I'm going to make it look like kind of a rusted tin, corrugated tin roof. So we're going to go in and we're going to add we're going to start with a little peacock blue, but we're going to add some maybe burnt sienna or some other stuff. We're going to add some.
I don't want to get ahead of the game.
Yeah, but we're gonna make it look like it's not gonna be super dark. It's still gonna be fairly light. But we're gonna try and we're gonna do something similar to oh, I turned off my share of my screen. We're gonna do something similar to what's in that photo. It won't be quite that uniform looking, but it'll be those same colors and that kind of fun, rusty look. So that's where we're going to go with that.
Hey,
But
Michael?
it'll be quite a bit lighter than the trees and stuff around it.
Okay.
Hey, Michael?
Yeah.
Could you put your picture up again? I want to take a picture of it.
Oh yeah, the painting so far.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
All right, hang on.
Oh, take your time.
All right, got it.
Cool. Yeah. Anybody else? I guess I will take that as everybody's tired and wants to wants to head home. Well, you guys are all home, so but wants to end for the night. So with that, I will bid you guys good night and wish you guys a happy rest of the week. And I should, again, I did record this. Yes, I'm double checking again. Yep. Or triple checking. I did record this, so I should have that recording up by Thursday at some point. Hope if I have time on Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll try to do it then. It just depends on what my day shakes out to be like tomorrow and Wednesday down in Gallup. So sometimes I get down there and I don't have a lot to do, and sometimes I get down there and I'm just crushed. So, all righty. Well, everybody have a good week, and we'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. You too.
All righty. Bye.
Bye-bye.